Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
Russell up against Antonelli, very tight between the two of them. Antonelli outside line, contact off the road. That is so close. Russell stays cool and has the lead, but they're finally brawling at the front between the Mercedes pair.
That was very naughty.
He's off. George Russell makes the mistake. Kimi Antonelli takes the lead. Russell is coming to a halt. George Russell is retiring from the race lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. And it's heartbreak, it's fury, and it's the end of the road for George Russell.
Kimi, let's check his flag.
Yeah, if we need to race like this, then good enough.
Kimi, now it's the first time to talk about this. We talk about this internally and not on the radio, okay?
Make sure to stick around as we wrap up the episode with our predictions game and take a look at our F1 Fantasy League. And don't forget to support the podcast by clicking those like, follow and subscribe buttons. Welcome on into the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott, and joining me this evening, as always, is Isidro Gonzalez and Damien Scott. Chaps, I'm genuinely looking forward to a consistent batch of races where we're not meeting up every 2 to 3 weeks. But tell me, how are you keeping this evening?
Hot.
Yes.
Hot.
It's very hot. It's very, very hot. It's like a sauna where I am at the moment here. So forgive me if I do nod off during the middle of this and I don't respond to any of your comments. Damien, what about you, Mister?
Yeah,
I have air conditioning in my house.
Yeah, but like it's the same temperature here, and I don't even have the air conditioning on. I've got long sleeves, you know. Like it's pretty.
Oh my God! Just rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah,
yeah.
I was in the desert during the weekend. It was like 35. It was warm.
I was in the desert.
The desert with a horse with no name. With a horse with no name.
I was in the desert with my big jacket and scarf. It was so cold.
I was in a meditation TP with George Russell.
Jesus, yeah, he definitely needs something like that going out of this weekend. But yeah, look, let's get into this. Folks, we finally made it to round 5 of the 2026 Formula 1 season for the Canada Grand Prix. But similar to the last race in Miami, not only did we get a Grand Prix, we also got another sprint race. So double the action yet again before we head to the European leg of the season. To be honest though, this weekend felt more like a UFC match than it did a Formula 1 race, because if you missed it, you definitely missed one of the best scraps we've seen in a long time, because between the sprint race and the main Grand Prix, both Kimi Antonelli and George Russell weren't holding back at all. At one stage, I was having deja vu because I thought, Jesus, are we going to get another repeat of last year with Lando binning it into the wall while he scrapped with Piastri? But we'll get into all that drama in just a few moments, because chaps, there's definitely a lot to unpack from this weekend. But let's kick it off and jump right into the meat and bones of the weekend, the Grand Prix. And don't worry folks, we'll make sure to cover some of the highlights from the sprint as we go along. But anyway, unlike last year when McLaren were on the fighting form and they were winning races and they knew what they were doing, they definitely threw out that playbook this time, because not only did they pick the completely wrong set of tyres, other teams on the grid had some questionable choices as well, with some taking medium tyres, some taking hard tyres and another taking slicks. Bit of a strange gamble, but considering it was somewhat wet and there was a tiny bit of rain kind of looming over the track, I suppose you have to roll the dice and see what happens. But you know, when it comes to the whole tyre choice thing, I think that was one sort of problem from the get-go. The other problem was we had, 2 or 3 formation laps? Isidro wants to jump in real quick here.
I just want to say, if it wasn't for McLaren disaster, we probably wouldn't have Hamilton podium.
And that's very true.
So
that's very true.
That's a sacrifice I hope McLaren keep doing.
I was actually going to say, I think Charles Leclerc just he snuck into the McLaren garage and he swapped the 2025 playbook from Ferrari with the 2025 McLaren strategy. He was like, here, you guys have our playbook from last year, see how far that gets you. But yeah, chaps, we had 2, well actually technically, what was it, 3 formation laps I think it was. So we had the first one and then we had an extra 2 on top top of that. And then not only with the first formation lap, we had Lindblad stalling his car on the grid. It was just an absolute shit show to the start of that race. Shouldn't have happened, but look, these little sort of things happen, and I know they're all still trying to tweak the starting procedure and all that kind of stuff, but that was an absolute shit show. But look, once we finally got going and the five lights went out, pretty much that race start, we kind of knew what was going to happen there, because first of all, we had the two McLarens on intermediate tyres, and we know obviously intermediate tyres on a dry track, those tyres are going to heat up pretty quick compared to the others who are on softs and mediums, and the track was a little bit slippery. It was cold, but obviously the McLarens had the better advantage off the start, which obviously happened because we had Lando leapfrogging both George and Kimi to take the lead into turn one. And then also as well, Kimi, he also got by George. George definitely didn't have the best start there, and he's still finding it difficult to get those race starts underway. But obviously, look, we had McLaren coming across the radio talking about getting onto different tyres because other teams were doing the same thing. We had Lando going into the pits on lap 3 to change onto the mediums, and then obviously we had Kimi taking the lead from Norris. But between lap 3 up until about lap 7, we had this incredible battle starting between Kimi and Russell, and we knew this going into the Grand Prix because in the sprint race, that was one thing, and we'll get onto that momentarily. But on lap 7, we had Russell who took the lead, and we also had Kimi locking up just at that chicane before the start, before the back straight, almost going into the back of Russell, and we thought this was it, that's going to be both Mercedes out. But finally, look, he recovered it and he was able to get back on track and get back into fighting form. Guys, the first team, because obviously we do need to talk about this, it was the main highlight of the entire weekend, Mercedes. First of all, the drama, and I know obviously between Russell and Kimi, they were trying to play it off in front of the cameras and especially in the media pen and all this kind of stuff, saying, oh yeah, we had a great battle and oh yeah, I'd love more of that. But you could see there's a difference between, wheel-to-wheel racing and when it comes to two people scrapping. That was a scrap. That was Kimi and George scrapping with each other for that lead. Because first of all, look, I just want to get off, before we say anything else here. That was an incredible battle. That's the kind of stuff that we were wanting to see with these 2026 regulations. That was brilliant. And then obviously, what was it, on lap 31 or whatever it was, George Russell, his car just absolutely gave up the ghost and just died, and that just brought an end to all the fun, and we thought to ourselves, it's going to get boring after that. But I think one thing to take out of this little scrap between Antonelli and Russell, first of all, I think it's a case of, yes, I know this is Kimi's second year, it's still... It's weird to sort of say this. It still feels somewhat that he's a rookie because he had 1 year on these old set of regulations like the ground effect era, and now he's into this new set of regulations. Obviously everyone is, but it somewhat still feels like he's a rookie because he's smashing these records for the very first time. He's doing all these things. He's winning consistently. You can see the pressure building up between himself and Russell. And I think this weekend, first of all, Kimi was obviously trying to cement the message that this championship is his, and Russell, it was also trying to cement the message that, look, I was here first, I'm technically the number one driver, I should be the one, in the lead here. Look, I want to get both of your opinions on this because, first of all, yes, look, they had a great sprint race and they also had a great Grand Prix. Kimi picking up P1 in the main Grand Prix, and then P2 in the sprint. And then we had George picking up P1 in the sprint race, but obviously DNFing in the main Grand Prix. So 39 points overall for the team, and still in a very, very comfortable lead in P1 in the Constructors on 219 points. Damien, I want to throw this over to you first. There's a lot of questions that people were having during this race. We seen it last year with the whole McLaren papaya rules thing, and then, when they were told, oh yeah, look, the gloves are off, the two of them can race against each other, and we've seen what happened in Canada last year with McLaren. But going into the whole Mercedes thing, right? Obviously, Toto had to come across the radio and during the sprint. We didn't hear him on the radio during the Grand Prix, but you know right well that he was trying to tell the two of them to calm down. Are we somewhat seeing the same thing happening here that we seen happen at McLaren last year? Of course, there's loads of teams that go through this. We've seen it with McLaren or Hamilton and Rosberg, and we've seen it with other inter-team title fights and stuff like that. But what is your opinion on that entire weekend with Mercedes?
Yeah, you mentioned McLaren there. There's definitely parallels with the Oscar and Lando situation. I think maybe Oscar had one more season. He had 2 seasons, and then last year he was, competing. He came out stronger last season than he was expecting, or Lando was expecting, and everybody's like, yeah, Lando's going to walk this, but Oscar had a different viewpoint, and we had a great battle between those two. From the Mercedes side of things, we've just had 1 season for Kimi just to kind of settle in. And I think we were expecting another season of the same from him, being competitive, getting some podiums, but he's kind of blistered, onto the on this podium this season. It's come out of nowhere essentially, and he said right now that the championship is mine. So I think that this weekend in particular, we saw the what would you say? Yeah, the gloves are off. I think the first couple of races is like, oh yeah, Mercedes, we're going to win everything. Nice and friendly. We have all these rules, but I think we really saw what each driver kind of thinks. And I think George. I think before the season started, everybody like, yeah, George's going to win this, no problem. Best car, senior driver. Yeah, he should win it easily. But yeah, Kimi is having something to say about that, and coming into his second season, that's an incredible jump in performance.
Yeah,
he's a natural driver, right? You can see he still thinks he's in the kart, and that's the way he kind of throws the car around the corners, and those battles that we saw on Sunday in particular, you could see his kind of karting style coming through there, very close wheel to wheel. The fantastic battle between the two. It was brilliant to watch. It was just such a pity that it ended the way it did. But yeah, Kimi went on then to win the race, I think, easily enough.
Yeah. Now, a quick question I have for you, and I want to get your take on this and opinion and whether or not you think this was right or wrong. So obviously we're focusing on the main Grand Prix here, but just rewinding it back to the sprint race. I know you might have seen this, and obviously the big debate that came at the end of the sprint race. That turn 1 incident in the sprint with George and Kimi. So obviously, I don't know if you've seen it, Kimi going up the outside, and he was ahead of Russell, and Russell was coming into the corner, and he somewhat kind of bounced off, or he didn't really bounce off. He hit the side of the apex, and the car kind of just wobbled a bit. And then he basically pushed Kimi out into the grass, and Kimi went for a big lawnmower adventure off into the side. Now, a lot of I've read a lot of takes on this, and I've listened to a lot of opinions, but the one thing that I just keep on coming back to was just the Sky Sports coverage on this one. Both Martin Brundle, I think Karun Chandhok, I think he said something as well about this. Initially, a lot of them were leaning towards that, George should have got a slap on the wrist for that. But then, they were kind of like, oh, when we look at it further, where could George go, and blah, 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 blah. If like one of the things that they kept on saying, and I thought it was very, very hypocritical, and I think this is the Achilles heel of this sort of debate. Don't worry, I'll ask you this. Do you think Russell should have got a slap on the wrist for that incident during the sprint against Kimi Antonelli? Do you think he should have got but because the other flip side to this is, if this was, let's say, George versus Max Verstappen, or let me throw you another example. Let's rewind it back to 2024 with Lando and Verstappen in Mexico, when Verstappen ran Lando off the grass and Lando went up the outside and then went straight off into the grass. What's your opinion on this? Because I'd like to know, as we go further into the season, we had the whole thing with McLaren papaya rules and Lando getting the punishment sort of thing or whatever. Do you think the same thing should happen here when it comes to Mercedes, or is this kind of setting a precedent that one driver can somewhat, push the rules further than they need to go to kind of push it in their advantage? I don't know, it's a long drawn out question, but basically, do you think George was in the wrong?
I don't think he was in the wrong. I think he was ahead going into the corner. If I remember correctly, he was leading, and Kimmy was giving it a go. This was the famous one where everybody's like, "Show us the damn replay again." After the incident, like they're like, "Where's the replay?" Anytime soon. The race director didn't seem to want to show it again. And I think when we saw it at the end, or maybe it was in the highlights package or something, I watched back. I think George was okay. Kimmy was trying it, and George kind of shut the door. I wouldn't say he pushed him off, but it was close racing or a racing incident at the very most, if you want to look at it that way. So yeah, I think it was okay from that perspective.
Personally, for me, and don't worry, I'm going to throw this over to you, Isidro, in just a few moments. Personally, for me, I don't think this is a grey area. I don't think it's a case of, we need to consider X, Y, and Z. I think this is just very black and white. If this wasn't an inter-team fight, if this was two different teams, someone would have received a penalty for that, and it would have been the aggressor, and I would have said George Russell, because on the replay, Kimi was ahead. He was ahead at the apex. George went into them. Yes, okay, maybe he might not have the control over where he was going, but there's still rules and guidelines that you need to follow while on the track. You still need to be in control of your car. And if you feel that you're not going to be able to make a corner, well, you just don't throw it up into that corner and then just completely erase the person who's right beside you. That is, in terms of sporting conduct in motorsport, that is a penalty, or it should have been a penalty. But obviously there's all these different opinions and all that kind of stuff, which is why I want to throw it over to Isidro. Isidro, what do you think about this whole situation? And then, of course, look, give me your thoughts overall on Mercedes this weekend, because there was so much just from that whole drama with Toto. I was waiting for the Toto response. It was the same track almost, 2 years ago, where Toto coined the phrase, "Focus, George, focus." So tell me.
It was more a stop moaning.
Yeah, stop moaning, can be just focus.
I think Russell, he didn't do anything wrong. It was just a matter of racing. And comparing with the other incident that you were talking about between Verstappen and Norris, that Norris decided to cut a bit of the grass on that day, it was Norris' fault. There was no space. He just kept going. And here, Kimi tried to go for a space that didn't exist at all, and Russell didn't do anything wrong there.
I want to just interject there real quick. I don't think he was going for a space that wasn't there at all. If you look back on
there
that,
was, he wouldn't have ended up in the grass.
No. You could even see, right? Karun Shaduk said the exact same thing. He said that Kimi Antonelli had control. He was ahead of Russell going into the corner, and he had a car's length to take the racing line, which that's what he was taking. He was taking the racing line. So he didn't go into a corner that didn't exist. The problem was that Russell came to the apex to try and obviously defend the position, which is understandable. You just don't give up a position. But he got to the apex, went over the curb, and just kept on going straight to push Kimi off. That's why I'm saying, surely that's not a penalty, no?
I say it again, Russell is in the clear. I saw nothing wrong there.
Oh, God. Whatever you do, Isidro, and Damien, I'm going to throw this both of you. Do not repeat any of those kind of sentences in our Formula One chat that we have with everybody else. There'll definitely be a lot of backlash. There's a lot of credit being thrown to George Russell's way here. But look, that's fine. That's your opinion. I just want to throw those little facts in there before we go any further. But anyway, sorry, continue, Isidro. I apologize.
And what was the second part? Oh, Mercedes overall. They are clearly the best team, and they are definitely holding up, because that Mercedes can definitely disappear in the horizon and leave everyone else behind. They're just holding up. They don't need to show all the cards right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's the thing. Like they're just like they also, I think, I'm nearly sure, brought upgrades this weekend for their car. They brought some upgrades. I don't think they've brought the full package yet. I think they've brought some little things that they've added onto the car. But they're still just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. I mean, it showed in the timings, you know, like obviously like these regulations are all designed to, you know, keep all the cars somewhat closer together, but I mean, it's pretty much the same as last year. We've got a pack of cars, maybe 3, that are about 15 seconds ahead of like the sort of top to midfield pack, and then we've got the rest of the pack who are like 45 to 3 laps behind everybody else.
The day Mercedes brings all the upgrades is the day that they will be lapping drivers.
Oh yes,
before they'll finish the first race.
The day they bring their full package, the rest of the season dies for everybody else and our entertainment, because we'll be back to going, all right, well, we'll just see who's going to come P2 and P3 now. It'll be like the Verstappen era where we're all just going, oh yeah, well, Verstappen's is going to be 20 million miles down the track and we're just going to see who comes in P2 and P3 now. But hey, look, that's motorsport, and obviously the FIA have always made the statement, well, we always want to bring in a new set of regulations that stop these kind of things from happening. And here we are 75 years later, and the fucking thing still keeps on happening. But anyway, look, we could debate about all that kind of stuff for all day long, but look, that was class racing. We'd love to see more of that. That's what we want to see. Hopefully, well, we're not going to see that going into Monaco, because again, Monaco is the most boring race on the track or on the calendar, and it's all just going to be a big parking lot again. Well, who knows, maybe 1 or 2 overtakes, but people going off into the wall as a result. But that's the kind of action we want to see. I think that was absolutely brilliant, and I want to see this going further. I want to see George and Kimi fighting, and that will make for great entertainment. Even if they are the dominant team and they're 20 million years ahead of everybody else, that's just going to still make for great entertainment all season long. So hopefully Kimi doesn't just shoot off into the distance. Damien has one more follow-up point there.
Yeah, I think that incident as well, if we're talking about the sprint race incident as well, is a good learning moment for Kimi. You know, I think he has to know and understand that, you know, George isn't just going to give up and give him a position. He's going to fight him tooth and nail for everything. So going into these kind of clashes or these overtake situations, he needs to know that he shouldn't expect the room to be left. I'd put it that way. So I think it's a good kind of learning moment for him. And obviously, you know, that will maybe sharpen up his skills a little bit as we progress. But yeah, great battle overall, I think, and it was great to see. But yeah, just pity it just ended so early in terms of the race from the George incident.
Well, you know, if you read and follow the rules of the book, you know, like you're more than likely going to expect that there is going to be room. But look, we'll move on.
Versus reality is a different thing.
Yeah, we'll move on because the next team I do want to talk about is McLaren, because yes, they had quite a roller coaster of a weekend. You know, pretty much like I'm going to kind of call this segment McLaren might not just be back yet, because last episode I think I just called it McLaren are back. But I think after this weekend, they might not be back just yet. Because obviously, look, we spoke about the whole thing that happened with the intermediate tyres, and we know obviously that just caused a massive, massive shit show for the strategy department. And, you know, we had all these things going on from the start of the race. As I said, Charles Leclerc, I think he snuck into the McLaren garage overnight and he swapped the playbooks around with last year's Ferrari 2025 strategy playbook. You got what do you call him? You've got Zach Brown like flicking through the notes here, going, "Why is there little clown drawings all across these notes here?" But yeah, it was definitely a mixed bag of emotions, because obviously the sprint was very different to what happened in the Grand Prix. Like for McLaren, the sprint race was very, very good, because obviously, look, we had Lando fighting with both Mercedes. Now, obviously, yes, they're still maybe not as fast as the Mercedes, but, you know, he was still able to pick up P2 in that sprint race and still, you know, pick up a nice, decent set of points. But obviously, compared to the Grand Prix, that was a different story. as I said at the start, yes, they were on intermediate, so they had warmer tyres. They were able to get a better sort of jump start than everybody else, if you want to sort of say. They were able to leapfrog ahead of the likes of Russell and Antonelli. But of course, when he came into the pits there on lap 3, that just brought him all the way down through the middle of the pack. But the one thing I do want to note here, even though the Grand Prix is probably a Grand Prix that they're never going to want to remember, it shows that McLaren is on fighting form. Like, Lando was able to come back through the pack. He was back up into, what was it, like P10 or P9 at one stage, halfway through the race. But obviously things went from bad to worse when the car just basically decided to die. Like, I think it was, on lap 40, the anti-stall error message came up on the dash for him. And then I think as a result, it was transmission issues or something that he was having with that car. Canada definitely doesn't like Lando Norris, because DNFing 2 years in a row at that track. I think every driver has their favourite track and one that knows it's going to play to their advantage. Canada definitely isn't one for Lando Norris. But Piastri, on the other hand, yes, even though he picked up, I think it was a P4 in the sprint race, so he was able to pick up a nice set of points there. He was still able to come back and finish up in P11 in the Grand Prix. Now, of course, yes, we had that incident with Alex Albon. I'm going to throw it out there. That is a slam dunk penalty. He was straight into the side of Alex Albon. Or look, just, because I love teasing Damien, I could just say, look, Albon shouldn't have been there. That was completely Albon's fault for having his Williams at that part of the track. I'm not going to do that. Am I joking? But obviously Piastri did pick up that. He did pick up a 10-second penalty because of that lovely torpedo strike into the side of Albon. He was just an innocent bystander racing his own race, and Piastri's just like, oh, sorry. Shouldn't have been there. But I think, obviously, if this was the McLaren that we seen back in Australia and China, they wouldn't have a hope in hell in trying to come back to the pack. They would have been stuck there at the back of the midfield trying to, gain on the likes of, the Cadillacs, if you want to say. I was trying to think, who's the worst team? Well, actually, I'll give Aston Martin some credit, or I'll give McLaren some credit to be able to beat the Aston Martins if it was the Australia and China car. But yeah, it was definitely a different set of emotions. But overall, look, they were able to bring 12 points out of that weekend, and they're still sitting in P3 in the Constructors on 106 points. But Isidro, I want to throw it to you. Was I a little bit too, premature in saying that McLaren are back? Is there still a lot to kind of work on when it comes to the McLaren sort of 2026 campaign? What did you think about them overall this weekend?
I think it was a weekend to forget. And I think Zach Brown, the fact that he wasn't there, it means that they knew what was going to happen. He didn't even bother to show up. But I think this was just a blip in the matrix, let's say. I think not for Monaco, because I think Monaco it will be Ferrari's time to shine. But for the European leg, I think McLaren will be much, much better.
Yeah.
I think they will learn from the mistake that they did this weekend, thinking that they are a title winning constructor team, and they need to show that in the race.
Yeah, I think for McLaren though, they're not going to hold on to that championship. I think that's definitely. Or look, maybe things could go the opposite way for Mercedes as we head into the European leg of the season. Things could go horribly wrong for them. But I think if things were to continue the way that they were as of the results that we have right now, I don't think McLaren have a chance in fighting for that title. They've a chance of coming in P2 maybe to take on the Ferraris, but do you think that they have a chance for the title?
No, not with Mercedes.
No, nobody has a chance against Mercedes. And probably a stupid question to ask you, because it's probably very, 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 very easy to answer this. Do you think it was a very stupid call to go on to the intermediates?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think Leclerc was in that garage overnight swapping around those playbooks?
Painting the little green on the tires and everything.
Yeah. These are intermediates, guys. No, these are hards. Yeah, no, definitely a weekend to forget for McLaren. But I think just if you kind of look at their performance, I think it was lucky that they did bring their upgrades when they did. I know, what was it, Miami, I'm nearly sure, when they brought their upgrades, or no, was it Japan? Was it Japan or Miami when they brought... No, it was Miami when they brought the upgrade package. But obviously in Japan, they had somewhat improved the car from what they had in China. But I think when they brought their upgrades to Miami, I think that was the right time, because if they didn't have their upgrades, they probably wouldn't be able to fight for any positions on that grid throughout the Grand Prix. Yes, I know Lando DNF'd, but, you know, it shows that they do have a fighting car there anyway. But speaking of Ferrari, let's move on to them, because again, maybe it was also a little bit hasty for me to say that, Ferrari are back as well. But I think for Ferrari, they might have peaked too early. And that's the recurring trend for the Ferrari campaign every single season. They have one or two great races at the start. They have these few little nice overtakes and nice bit of performance in qualifying in the Grand Prix. And then down goes the massive slope of shit fucking Ferrari strategies and clown decisions, and it's just back to square one when it comes to Ferrari. But this weekend, I don't know, I'm a little bit mixed on this one. I think the cracks are really starting to show now, and I think more so probably from Leclerc's side. I think Leclerc is getting a little bit frustrated because, yes, okay, the sprint was good for Ferrari. They were able to pick up P5 and P6, picking up 7 points from that sprint. But the Grand Prix was a bit of a struggle, and you could really see in terms of pace. Like, we had Verstappen in that Red Bull, which, yes, we know has brought a good bit of upgrades to the Red Bull car, but you could see Hamilton, that battle with Verstappen, even though it was great, it just took so long for it to happen. And for a Ferrari car that we have seen that has been considerably quick off the start and has been very, very fast. We've seen it in Australia, we've seen it in China, and we also seen it in Japan. I think the cracks are starting to come through here because, what was it? I think it was about lap maybe 62 before Hamilton was able to come back and actually fight against Verstappen. Like, Verstappen got by him, I think what was on lap 9 or something like that, because I think Hamilton had some deployment issues and things like that, so he wasn't able to fight with Verstappen all that long. But it took him, I think it was lap 55, he was able to come back when that battle started to happen and the tyres were starting to come alive. And I think Verstappen was having issues with his tyres. They were a lot colder than what they should have been, and he was having, issues with grip and so on. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that for a team that we thought was going to be, one of the title contenders against Mercedes, it just kind of feels like it's sort of starting to fall apart again. Like we've seen Leclerc having another massive Tokyo drift moment at the Wall of Champions, spinning the car, and, well, he luckily did save it this time compared to when he was in Miami when he binned that into the wall. But it just sort of seems that Leclerc, I feel, is getting a little bit frustrated right now, because we've seen him snapping again at the race engineer on the radio. He was like, nope, don't talk to me until the end of the race. Don't tell me unless it's absolutely critical. But regardless of that, though, again, Leclerc finishing P5 in the sprint. He also did finish P4 in the Grand Prix, which was good. We had Hamilton finishing P6 in the sprint, and then, of course, picking up P2 in the main Grand Prix, bringing out 37 points overall and still sitting in P2 in the Constructors. So, Damien, I want to bring you in on Ferrari here, but if you compare it to the likes of McLaren, yes, they had a bit of a moment this weekend. It was a bit of a slip up when it comes to the strategy. But if McLaren were on fighting form this weekend and they had their strategy correct and they had the right tyres on, I don't think Ferrari would have been in the P4 or the P2 positions. Am I right in saying that?
They probably definitely benefit from others' misfortune, but when opportunity presents itself, you have to be able to take it, and they did that well. So from like a points perspective, they did very well this weekend, and obviously Hamilton got on the podium as well. So from the outset, getting the positions that they did and the points that they did, you'd have to be pretty happy with that, I would say. I think you're talking there about the Hamilton and Verstappen battle, and it taken quite a while for Hamilton to get past Verstappen. I think that's also to do with an improving Red Bull. And obviously, if you get an improving car and you've got Max Verstappen in it, you're not going to easily get past him. So I think there's a little bit of that aspect to it as well. But again, I think it comes down to mindset. We've had very different messages from the two drivers. Obviously, it's the same hardware they're in, same car, and yeah, Leclerc saying it's his worst weekend ever in Formula One, and yeah, he's been around for quite a while, so that's quite a statement to make after what on paper looks like a good weekend where he got good points, and then we have Hamilton, who had a very difficult first season, who seems to be really finding his feet this year. And he was saying, yeah, it's the best I've ever felt in a Ferrari. He was talking as well about finally getting the right engineering team in place. So I think behind the scenes, he's been kind of working on that. It was clear he wasn't happy with his race engineer, for example. Last year, there was a lot of communication issues, etc. So, yeah, Leclerc feeling a little bit down in the dumps. And he couldn't really get his tires up to kind of race temperature. I think he was having a lot of trouble with tires and brakes, and he was complaining about that. But I think as well, he said at the end, look, Lewis is in the same car, and he did P2, he did really well, so he has to look at setup from his side and things like that. So yeah, it's either your weekend or it's not, and I think maybe Leclerc's been a little bit down on himself, but yeah, from the outside looking in, you'd have to be happy with what they got this weekend in terms of points. Yeah, and coming to Monaco next week, where Charles has obviously won there before, and it's his home Grand Prix. You'd hope that the Ferraris would be thereabouts to kind of pick up some points there. And yeah, Hamilton, yeah, coming out of a slump, he's had a good season. I think he's finished ahead of Leclerc for 3 of the past 4 races, or 4 out of 5, something like that. So Leclerc starting to have to scrap a little bit more. I think now he's going to have to up his game. Lewis Hamilton is a great driver, and he's starting to find his feet in that team. So I don't know, maybe a little bit of pressure on Leclerc's side. Let's see how he responds.
Yeah, well, who knows? The thing about it is, though, I will say he just recently got married, so he should be happy, Let's not say anything any further, okay, chaps? We all
no comment.
We all have wives and partners that listen to this podcast. We won't say anything further. So moving on, but Damien, yeah, no, I do agree, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at, because personally, as a Ferrari fan, Ferrari again are my number one team. It's just getting very, very boring to sit here every season, have a great start to whatever season it might be, and then by Monaco we're just literally trying to figure out what the hell the team is even doing, and trying to figure out, do we even have a car that can race even in the midfield? But yeah, go on. But
they're second in the championship, so they're doing something right,
Yeah, no, they are, but what about
down to McLaren, not having the best of starts? They're, what are they, 41 points behind. McLaren are 41 points behind Ferrari, so they just kind of have to keep a little bit ahead of them throughout the season, and they could get that second place. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say all is lost. In fact, Ferrari are improving. Again, it just comes down to perspective and things like that. But yeah, hopefully for some, maybe like to see Charles win next week. It's always nice to win your home Grand Prix.
That's true. It's very true. Isidro?
Just funny thing, talking about perspective. So Leclerc, he's been in F1 since 2018. He has 8 wins. Kimi Antonelli's been in F1 since 2025, and he's already have 4 wins. Just perspective.
That's,
just to put Leclerc down.
That's a good perspective. And you know what, Isidro? If I, let's say Leclerc had won a lot more, and Ferrari were a reputable team to follow and be like, oh, I'm very proud to be a Ferrari fan, I would have been like, hey, you leave Mr. Leclerc alone. But leave him alone anyway. But I mean, look, this is just business as usual, I suppose. I'm not gonna take that as a offensive in any way, shape, or form, because it's true. It's facts. You can't argue with facts, Isidro. But yeah, look, let's move on, chaps. There's a lot we could talk about Ferrari, and we could sting them in the side with jokes left, right, and center. We have an entire book of jokes when it comes to Ferrari, but we do need to move on. Let's talk about Red Bull, because yes, as I did mention there, and I know Damien, you mentioned it as well, even though the Red Bull is now in fighting form, it was just a case of between Ferrari and Red Bull and McLaren. Personally for myself, I think what I'm just kind of worried about is this now going to start to be the downfall of the Ferrari confidence and the Ferrari pace? Because yes, the Red Bull car has now improved. They've got a lot of good upgrades on that. We've got Max Verstappen in that car. Isaac Hadjar is a different story. I think he needs to maybe cool it down just a little bit when it comes to certain antics, because my God, was he pulling his inner Yuki Tsunoda there this weekend, trying to kill Charles Leclerc at one stage. Because him picking up that 10-second penalty, and obviously he DNF'd, or he did come back out during the sprint, but then they brought him back in again. He didn't score any points. He finished, I think it was P21, I think it was in the sprint or something like that. Yeah, P21 in the sprint, but he was able to pick up P5, but he still had that hefty 10-second penalty that he had to consider during the race after that incident with Leclerc. But I think it's definitely an interesting battle to look at between McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari. I think this is definitely the second fight to look at. Even though we have three teams, this is the second big fight, because if McLaren don't have another weekend like they had this weekend, and let's say Ferrari have a similar weekend, well, we're all somewhat back on equal playing field. Like the points will then start to close up, because if Verstappen and let's say Hadjar gets on form and they pick up a lot of points, this could be a very interesting battle, a very interesting three-way battle. Isidro, you have a point you want to raise here.
I'm confused. Why are we talking about between top teams and midfield teams?
Oh, again with the zingers.
I'm confused. Talking about top teams, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari. Start bringing midfield teams.
Midfield teams throwing massive shade, Isidro. massive shade. Jesus.
Again, facts.
Just be careful. You think the Argentinian fans are very, they like to, jump in there when it comes to the Colapinto jokes and the Colapinto jabs. Just be careful around the Red Bull fans, Isidro. They're very protective of Mr. Verstappen and Red Bull.
I'm not talking about Verstappen. I'm talking about the midfield team, Red Bull Racing.
He's still going. He's still poking. There we go. throwing more coal on the fire there, Isidro.
Verstappen is just a part-time driver for Red Bull Racing.
Yes.
His real job is the VerstappenRacing.com GT3.
That's it. That's his full-time job. F1 is just a weekend hobby for him now at this stage.
Side gig.
Yeah, I actually heard a little segue here. I actually heard I was watching a video there just recently about the whole thing with him going into GT3. So obviously the car that Verstappen.com chose for their main car was Mercedes. So they chose the Mercedes AMG GT3. Beautiful car, V8 supercar. It's a monster. Sounds incredible. Perfect car to pick for, especially in the Nürburgring. Great handling, all that kind of good stuff. It's built for that sort of stuff. But I heard a funny thing there that Ford were trying to. They were concerned, or they were concerned as to why he didn't pick the Ford Mustang GT3, because they assumed he was a Ford driver. I'm just like, okay, yes, the whole Ford Red Bull powertrain things make sense, but come on, Ford, get out of here. Get out of here. Don't bring that to his full-time job. He doesn't want to be sitting in the midfield. He wants to be at the front. No wonder he picked a Mercedes for his car.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we could talk about that all day long as well. But it's a very interesting thing to watch, though, guys. If you never have, definitely check out the likes of the GT World Challenge and the whole Nürburgring 24 Hours. Great series to check out. I love watching that, and especially the World Endurance Championship. And again, we have the 24 Hours Le Mans coming up very soon. Can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome. But anyway, sorry, enough segues. Let's continue on here with Red Bull. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, look, sprint race for Red Bull, it wasn't really that great. We had Verstappen finishing in P7 and Hadjar, as I said, finishing in P21. The Grand Prix, it was somewhat a different story. Yes, we had that great battle, Verstappen and Hamilton. You know, like it kind of brought up those sort of memories and feelings of what we had in 2021 to a tiny little degree, like the old school Hamilton and Verstappen battles. But it, as I said earlier on during our Ferrari segment, it took a while for the thing to actually happen, but it was great when it did. And yeah, it didn't really happen for all that long, but it was great to see the old school driving and defensive driving for Verstappen and Hamilton. It was good. But look, when it came to the Grand Prix itself, we had Verstappen finishing in P3, picking up some great points there. And then, of course, we had Hadjar finishing up in P5. Yeah, he served that 10-second time penalty in the pits, I think it was. But overall for the weekend, they picked up 27 points, which was points that they desperately needed in their 2026 campaign. I think, yeah, they're sitting at P4 right now on 57 points. Azidro, I mean, I don't know if I should even ask you anything about Red Bull now, because we all kind of know what you're going to say here. Why should we be talking about a midfield team? But what did you think overall? Between Verstappen and Hadjar, what did you think of the performance? Are Red Bull on the right track, or is there work that still needs to be done at Red Bull?
I think there's a lot of work, but I'm not sure if they'll be able to stay away from the midfield battle for this season.
Very, very serious answer, but still throwing the jabs in.
And Hadjar, I think he was very unlucky this weekend. The 10-second penalty, that could be a warning, or at least 5 seconds. The stop and go, it was too much. He didn't deserve all that penalties.
Really?
It's like Hadjar is becoming the new Ocon.
He's just becoming another Yuki Tsunoda. For some reason, what happens is when it comes to that second Red Bull seat, whoever was in there previously, they've just left their soul and essence in the seat, and then all of a sudden you just start to do the things that the previous driver started to do. You're like, holy shit. Like, Tsunoda is there going, why am I suddenly shit like Perez? And Hadjar is like, why am I just running into people just randomly like Yuki Tsunoda used to do? Oh my god, what's going on here? But yeah, no.
So but I think that Hadjar was a bit unlucky. There was the penalties were too much. But I'm surprised that he was able to keep his place, because Colapinto was miles away.
Yeah,
so
that was...
got a bit lucky there.
Yeah, he did. He got very, very lucky with that. And I think, you know, where he was, I think he served the 10 seconds time penalty. I think it was near the end of the race or something like that. So yeah, he had plenty of time to pop into the pits and serve that and then come back out. Because I'm really sure there was a VSC or something like that we had at one stage. And I think that's when he capitalized on it, because he was able to save like 3 seconds or something like that anyway. But yeah, it kind of shows the difference there. Like, obviously Alpine and Haas and all that kind of stuff, they do have a lot of catching up to do when it comes to trying to even catch up with the top teams. Now, I'm nearly sure as well, like, don't quote me on this, because I think I actually heard I think the FIA brought out a statement there during the week, or I think it was last week or something like that. I seen it on Instagram, or it might have been on X or something like that. But hey, look, it's the internet. It's all fake news. We all know what's on the internet is an absolute lie. Even though people are listening to us on the internet. So we're talking all absolute bollocks, apparently. But I heard that the FIA said that by Canada, if the midfield to back of the pack teams haven't caught up, they're going to look into enhancing or giving the teams an extra cost cap, or giving like a leeway in the cost cap to actually bring them up to the same sort of playing fields that the likes of like Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari are at. that could be big. That could be huge, because if we could get those kind of upgrades going into, you know, and obviously we won't get them in going into Monaco, but if we even got that going into like Silverstone or, you know, Belgium and all those kind of tracks, that would be huge. Imagine the kind of race that we would kind of see if we were to see that sort of thing at Spa. But hopefully something like that does happen. I'll try and find the article and send it on to you guys about that. But before I rambled on about that segue,
save the money and say Mercedes doesn't run the two next GPs.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Save the money.
Just save the money. Give them a couple of weekends off. Damien had a follow-up point there that he just wanted to throw in there before I went on that big FIA tangent.
Yeah, Alpine are not that far behind Red Bull. Red Bull needed the double points finish this weekend in order to stay, you know, a good distance ahead of Alpine. So, you know, Alpine with I think P6 and P8 this weekend. Another best performance for Colapinto after he had a best performance in Miami. So, I think there's about 20 points between them, something like that. So they're not far behind. And if Red Bull slip up, you know, double points finishes every week for Alpine will start to eat into that. So, you know, they're definitely improving. And yeah, if Red Bull don't kind of pick up the pace, looks like they are, but if they don't, then yeah, they may be in a little bit of trouble from the midfield pack as such. Williams this year, but looks like Alpine is the next best.
What are you saying, Isidro?
I was going to say midfield teams, they stick together. So Alpine, Red Bull, Williams.
Wow, you are not giving up on this little jab here at Red Bull. Isidro, you are going to get a bunch of comments in the comment section from Red Bull supporters and Red Bull fans. Just be careful. They're protective of their team. They will come out of the woodwork from the from the big massive rocks that they're hiding behind right now to actually come out and defend their team. But yeah, no, that's definitely an interesting one. But you know, as they say, Damien, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. That's what's the most important thing. So yeah, just remember that statement as we go further on to this episode. But anyway, let's wrap it on up there, because that was an amazing Grand Prix. Want to see more of that action. It was absolutely incredible. Obviously, there was other things that happened during that race, but we are going to talk about the top 10 results. So, looking at our top 10, we had Kimi Antonelli finishing in P1, bringing in those lovely lot of points there for Mercedes and cementing that massive middle finger to George Russell even further. Lewis Hamilton in P2, Max Verstappen in P3, Charles Leclerc in P4, Isaac Hadjar in P5, Franco Colapinto in P6, Liam Lawson in P7, Gasly in P8, Carlos Sainz in P9, and picking up the last point for the weekend was Ollie Behrman in P10. Definitely an interesting sort of top 10 result there. But as interesting as that was, there was a lot of DNFs. Cars were just falling apart, running into walls and breaking down, and just didn't know what the hell they were doing, because we had Perez, his car just fell apart going into the pits. Nobody touched him. He just went into the pits and his car broke. Suspension just completely decided to break on the way into the pit lane, which was absolutely hilarious to watch. We had Norris with transmission issues. He DNF'd as well. His car decided to die. Russell had the same problem. His battery just died. All the batteries are dying. I mean, is this a recurring trend that we're noticing here? Just focusing way too heavily on batteries and all this shit. Just go back to the lovely V10s, just combustion engine. Let's bring it back to basics, folks. Worrying about all this hybrid battery shite.
Back to horse racing.
Back to horse racing. That's it. Let's just put a couple of horses on there and put on a cart and just go. And that'll be Formula One. We also had Alonso because he's driving an Aston Martin. He DNF'd. We had Albon, who just got torpedoed by Piastri. He was an innocent bystander. He just got absolutely obliterated and sent to the Shadow Realm. And then finally we had Lindblad, who pretty much needs to go back to driving school because he stalled his car. And that was all the DNFs. Very, very interesting one. They were all falling apart like flies and dropping like flies throughout that race. But yeah, definitely an interesting one. Which brings us on to our next segment, chaps. Our driver of the day, dick of the day, and loser of the day. Damien, who is your driver, dick, and loser?
I have to go for Antonelli for driver of the day. Say it was a great battle with George up until George's retirement, and then after that, I think he managed the race pretty well. So 4 wins out of 5 this season for Kimi, and that was another one he racked up. It was a great performance. Very close second for me would have been Colapinto, again getting a Alpine into P6 was it, and but Kimi for driver of the day. Dick of the day for me, Oscar, for obvious reasons, torpedoing our good friend Alex Albon, and there was another points chance for Williams. Per Albon has been not getting the best of luck recently. And then loser of the day has to be George Russell. Like, on paper, George had a great weekend right up until the power unit failure that he had. You know, he had to come out and show Kimi that, you know, he's not just going to roll over. Did it in the sprint race, you know, good qualifying, was defending well in the race, and then just all fell apart for him. And again, we have that meme of him standing behind the grill fence, looking pretty sad. So loser of the day has to be George.
Yeah, definitely a meme for ages. That was hilarious to see. But I don't know, Damien. You have to be very careful about the credit that you're throwing George Russell's way here. It's very scary that you guys are giving him a lot of credit here. I mean, well, what are you thinking?
Like, he had a great weekend.
Isidro, I really hope you don't have the same opinion here. But I feel like you might. Who is your driver, dick and loser?
So driver of the day, I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton. It was nice to see him in a nice car fighting for a podium, and that happened. He didn't quit. He got second place. So for me, driver of the day would be Hamilton. The dick of the day, that will be Oscar Piastri, just to beat Albon. It was a sad day for Albon, and then Piastri just got 10 seconds for that. Seems unfair, considering that the other guy was out of the race instantly. And finally, loser. It's a long list for Canada. Starting with the Canadian wildlife, they were definitely loser of the weekend. I'm going to say the viewers, because as soon as Russell was out, the race lost some interest. It only picked up after the battle between Hamilton and Russell.
Yeah.
And then we have Russell. That was tough luck. Albon, of course, because he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and suddenly he gets a McLaren wing straight in the middle of the car. And finally, Lindblad, that he couldn't even start the race.
So unlucky. He just forgot how to Formula One. He just forgot how to be a race driver for a few moments, and it backfired on him quite literally. Well, it didn't even backfire at all. It just didn't even start. Yeah, definitely interesting one. But guys, look, mine's very similar. My driver of the day, of course, giving it to Antonelli. Brilliant. Great scrap, loved it, very aggressive, awesome. My dick of the day, very different to you guys. I'm going with Toto Wolff. I love Toto, I give him all the credit in the world, think he's a great team principal, all that kind of stuff, but I wish he didn't get involved in that scrap. I just wish, let them fight, just let them fight. That's what we wanted to see with McLaren last year. Just let them fight it out, and you know, that'll dictate who the number one driver is. So Toto, I'm giving my dick of the day to you. Enjoy. I'm not going to finish that sentence. And then finally, my loser of the day, I'm giving it to Albon, because he was just an innocent bystander in that crash. Piastri just, torpedoing the shit out of him and sent him the shadow realm. It was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So unfortunately, Albon, that was a bit of a rough one for you this weekend. But yeah, look, let's move on to our Fantasy League and predictions game results. Yes, the Fantasy League was a good one this weekend, and as always, like we always like to say, we'll go with our top 5. That's how we always like to go with. It's our top 5 results. Emphasis again for the 5th week in a row, the top 5. So in P1 at the moment, we have Whip Verstappen on 1,566 points. Those points are definitely climbing for Mr. Whip Verstappen. Then we have Saptarshi F3 in P2 with 1,449 points. Rampango Marquinhos, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, in P3 with 1,433. Tyre Shredder number 1 in P4 on 1,360. And then finally, my lovely self, Expecto Patronus AMG Formula 1 team in P5 on 1,255 points. Moving on to our predictions game.
No, we will not move on. We will talk about...
No,
we can talk about the flop again this week. I didn't even change my team, and I still beat you by how many points was it?
Damien,
every
weekend you go on about this. You always focus it on me. You always just worry about yourself. That's why you're That's why you're 2 places behind me. So focus on yourself.
How many points?
So I'm currently still in P5, and I think I also remember you saying at some stage, what was it there in Japan? I think, no, it was at Japan. You were like, oh, just wait until we get to Miami. I'll be ahead of you at Miami, and we're at Canada, and I'm still ahead of you in P5. Like I said it matters where you finish, Damien, not where you start.
I said that last week, and the past 2 weeks again, nearly 200 points, and I'm 15 points behind you. Next week, then it's all over, buddy. It's done.
We'll see about that. Who do you have on your team there? You have, was it Kimi? You have Lawson. You have Charles. You've got both Audi drivers, and then you also have Mercedes and Haas. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. My team is going to absolutely trash yours. I don't really care. It's just funny just to see you get angry over this.
I'm not angry. I'm just pointing it out. You brought it, buddy.
You're a little bit angry. Come on, Damien. You're a little bit, just a little bit.
Get the results for Canada. P6. Got Pacific Armada F1 Racing. And what were you? P something? P10? Oh, it's awful.
I know. You're always bringing up what happens every week. So it must just really crush you to see me still in P5 while I still come in like P10 and P11 and I'm still ahead of you in the championship. Oh, I come ahead of you each week, but I'm still ahead of you. Oh.
Miami P1, 279 points. And what were you?
Again, moving on because I'm sitting in a sauna right here, absolutely sweating my face off. I don't want to talk about this any further. I'm in P5, you're in P7, end of. We'll see.
You hear the Jaws music?
No, I can't, man. I can hear the sound of my fan clicking on here in a few minutes after I finish this episode. I am sitting in a pool of sweat right now, so let's continue on here. We're moving on to our predictions game. Of course, Dave, he sent in his predictions for Canada. He had Russell in P1, which was definitely the wrong way to go. I think when he seen Russell DNF and he probably just threw his phone at the telly. He had Kimi in P2 and Piastri in P3. That was a bit of a rough one for Dave this weekend, but he did have Albon outside the top 10, but he did DNF, I'm nearly sure. Yes, he did DNF, so unfortunately that is 0 points. And he had Behrman inside the top 10, and Behrman did pick up P10, so he still managed to pick up a point from this weekend. Isidro, who were your predictions? What was your results like?
So I had Kimi P1, Norris P2, and Russell P3.
Oh.
Yeah, tough ones.
Yeah.
And then Colapinto outside top 10. That was disappointing, but good for him. And then Berman inside the top 10.
Ooh, very nice. Picking up 2 points this weekend. Very, very nice. Yeah, that's I'm sure once you've seen like the McLaren thing happen, you're just probably like, shit, here we go. Then you've seen Russell DNF and you're just like, what's the point in me even doing this anymore? The F1 gods are just against me this weekend. Yeah, mine weren't really that great, to be fair. Mine were just absolutely shocking, but I did manage to pick up a point from Kimi being in P1 there. I went with Piastri in P2, and then I went with Charles in P3. Got the wrong Ferrari driver on the podium this weekend. Then I had Colapinto outside the top 10, Boo Earns, and then I had Behrman inside the top 10. So I did manage to pick up 2 points, which was good there. Damien, what were your predictions? What were your predictions?
I had King Kimi P1.
Yeah.
For 1 point. I had Lando P2 0 and Russell P3 for 0. Albon outside the top 10 technically happened, but he DNF'd. And then I had Behrman inside the top 10 for 1 point.
Wow, so we all just beat Dave this weekend. That's basically that's basically what happened there. We all just beat Dave. Dave was the loser of this week. But yeah, pretty much the way it kind of looks now at the moment, Isidro is still comfortably in the lead there with 9 points. Comfortably in the lead on 9, just sitting there in P1. P1, he is the leader of the championship in P1 on 9 points. Just going to repeat that for anyone who cannot hear at the back of the classroom. P1 on 9 points. And then Damien is in P2. Oh my God, P2 on 8 points. Jesus, imagine being in P2 on 8 points. That is absolutely embarrassing. And then we have Dave in P3 on 7 points. And then sure, look, I'm just keeping the seat warm for whoever decides to come last this season in P4 on 6 points. Just I'm keeping it warm for you. That's all. That's all. But yeah.
Black there with 6 points.
Yep, look, I'm keeping the seat warm. The seat might fall apart, either from, the size of me or the sweat corroding the chair right now. But sure, look, it is what it is. But we'll move on to our predictions for Monaco, which is not this weekend, it's the following weekend. So we've another week and a half-ish to go before we get another race. Of course, look, Dave, he will send in his predictions. But Isidro, what are your predictions for Monaco?
So I have Kimi P1, Leclerc P2, and Hamilton P3.
Ooh, interesting.
So
interesting
Monaco
combo.
is a Ferrari will suit Monaco. There's
Yeah,
no straights, so it's good for them.
nice.
Then
nice.
I have Sainz outside the top 10, and I have Piastri inside the top 10.
Oh, yeah, I think that's kind of the way that everyone's going here. Like, I mean, he's in a McLaren. The McLarens are good again, I suppose. So, yeah, it's going to happen.
It all depends off the qualifying session on Saturday, basically.
That's it, because whatever happens in qualifying is going to be the race results. So we all know that's going to happen. These regulations aren't going to make an ounce of difference. I hope I'm eating my words next weekend. I really, really do. I hope there is a lot of overtakes, and I hope it is class racing, and I hope the regulations do work. But it's probably not. It's going to be the same feckin' thing that we've had for the last feckin' several years in Monaco. It's all just going to be a car park, and whoever finishes in qualifying, that's what the race is going to be. Maybe with one little change if someone decides to undercut or bin it into a wall. But it's pretty much going to end up be the same thing. But my predictions are kind of similar, but a little bit different. So you could say that they're same, but different, but still same. I have Kimi, of course. We're all going with Kimi for P1. I've got Leclerc in P2 because, again, we all know Leclerc and Monaco, they go hand in hand. He loves that track, and of course he wants something to prove coming out of these rough couple of weekends from Miami and Canada. Going with him for P2, and then Norris in P3. I'm just kind of throwing him in there from last year because, yeah, he was great around Monaco last year. I have Lawson outside the top 10. No need to explain why. And then I've got Piastri inside the top 10. Damien, what are your predictions?
I have Kimi in P1, Leclerc in P2, and George Russell in P3.
Mm-hmm.
And for my flop, talking about binning into a wall, I have Isaac Hadjar outside the top 10. And then I have Piastri inside the top 10 for the surprise.
Interesting. Well, who knows, chaps? We will know in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, very, very, very interesting how this is going to shape up. And again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, hopefully this whole thing that the FIA is introducing or potentially introducing with raising the cost cap or making it a little bit more easier for teams to catch up, hopefully we might even see a little bit of that at Monaco, because it would be great. Because look, don't get me wrong, I was always a fan of Monaco. I loved Monaco as a kid growing up. I loved seeing the Monaco races, Schumacher going around. I always loved that cool little hairpin turn that we always know just before the tunnel and all that kind of stuff. I used to love it as a kid growing up. It was great, but the cars were great for that track, and there was overtaking and it was fast and all this kind of stuff. But I would love to see that happen now, and hopefully I'm eating my words and we're all sitting there watching another class race like we did. Maybe it's not going to be the same as Canada, but hopefully we see something pretty good going into Monaco. But yeah, I suppose we'll see what happens. We've got a week and a half to wait and see. We'll probably see a practice anyway, a little bit of a demonstration of that, and of course we'll see that in qualifying. But chaps, look, thank you so much as always for taking the time out of your afternoon and evenings to talk about Formula 1 and talk about the old Canada Grand Prix. It was good to chat about it. I love how we didn't bring up Lance Stroll once. Damn it, shit. I broke my rule. I wasn't going to talk about Lance Stroll. But listen, thank you so much, chaps, for taking the time out of your evening.
Alrighty. Talk soon.
Thanks. It was great.
Awesome.
Talking about midfield teams.
Talking about midfield teams, Isidro's not going to let that bone go. Even if Red Bull are on fighting for him and they're fighting for the title. Jesus, Red Bull, midfield team, winning the championship. Never could see that coming.
Not this year for sure.
Not this year for sure. But look, who knows? A lot can happen in the space of a season of Formula One. A lot of things can happen. But yeah, look, folks, thank you so much for listening as well. If you did enjoy today's episode, of course, definitely make sure to leave a like. Leave us a comment below if you enjoyed our takes on the Canada Grand Prix. I'd say the Canadian Grand Prix. The Canada Grand Prix. What were your thoughts as well? What were your opinions? Were we right? Were we wrong? Tell us your whole opinion about the whole George and Kimi inter-team battle and the whole Mercedes drama and all that kind of good stuff. But of course, as well, if you do enjoy the episodes and you do enjoy what we do here, of course, please definitely make sure to support us and click that subscribe button if you want to hear more episodes, and definitely make sure to have the bell notification enabled for whenever we do post a new episode as well. But until next time, we will see you all in a week and a half's time. It's now, was it the 20 something or whatever it is? Yeah, it's in 11 days time, isn't it? 11? Yeah, 11 days to go until we get to Monaco. So from my very steamy and hotty sauna room here where we're recording this, we will see you all in 11 days time for the most boring race on the calendar, Monaco. Adios.